Ministers had to surrender their phones. It's understood the main proposal is for the UK to remain closely aligned to the EU when trading goods, but not services. So let's take a look at the deal so far. So what does the government's future customs plan after Brexit look like? Well, the title just rolls off the tongue. The facilitated customs arrangement. There it is, to keep access to EU markets and keep manufacturers happy that the UK would mirror existing EU rules and regulations on goods. To try to keep Brexiteers happy, the UK would decide whether to adopt new EU rules. This wouldn't happen automatically. And the UK would set its own tariffs on goods from outside the EU, allowing the government to do trade deals. But technology would track goods that go onwards to the EU, and the EU's tariffs would be charged on them. Well, let's go now to our chief political correspondent, Vicky Young, who joins me now from Chequers. Hello again, Vicky. So that ban on phones, no information leaking out, I take it, about what's going on in that house behind you.
No, I mean, they're in there, not exactly locked in there, but pretty much. They had to hand their phones, their Apple Watches over. Now, you know, Downing Street is insisting that this is standard practice. You do that, well, we do that when we go into Downing Street to do interviews or go to press conferences, but cabinet ministers also have to do that before their cabinet meetings. But in this case, if they're in there for another 8-9 hours or so, it does mean, of course, that no one really knows what's going to be going on. But what we do know is that Theresa May really does want to get some kind of deal done today. She has already been to see Angela Merkel, of course, in Berlin. She has got meetings lined up to sell this idea to Brussels, because of course they have to agree too. But first of all, she has to get them to agree. And we know there was a meeting last night in the Foreign Office led by Boris Johnson, the Foreign Secretary, of 7 so-called Brexiteers in the cabinet who are not happy. There are some of them who don't feel that this will fly. They don't think that the EU will accept it, but they also don't think that it would give the UK the opportunities as they see it that there are outside of the EU, that this would mean we would be so closely aligned that maybe we couldn't do our own trade deals. There are question marks too about freedom of movement, immigration. Would that end as well? That was such a big, potent issue during the referendum. But despite all of that, David Lidington, the cabinet minister, said today that he was pretty optimistic about what this plan would mean.
I think it's a balanced package. It combines delivering on what the Prime Minister has promised, ending the jurisdiction of the European courts in the United Kingdom, ending freedom of movement, ensuring we're out of the single market and the customs union, with proposals for a creative and forward-looking partnership with our European colleagues that covers security, police cooperation, but critically covers cooperation on business and trade as well. Because you look at the automotive industry in this country, you look at agriculture and fisheries in this country, they are very integrated into European markets, a lot of two-way trade, a lot of customers in other European countries our people sell to. Jobs here depend on that, so it's important that we ensure any disruption to business is the minimum possible.
So you can rest assured that argument about trade, about businesses, that is going to be a fundamental part of today. You can expect the Chancellor, Philip Hammond, who's been leading the charge on all of this, I think, to be presenting that case to the Cabinet, that this idea of frictionless trade, that we stay closely aligned so not to disrupt that, particularly in manufacturing, of course, and in goods, that's incredibly important. But of course, there are questions. There's questions about the service industry, questions, as I say, about freedom of movement. And I suppose the point is now, where do the Brexiteers go with all of this? If they were to resign, to leave here tonight and say we can't accept this, we can't go out and defend it, what happens then? Does that mean that Theresa May is then challenged over the leadership? Or is she just thinking that actually Parliament in some ways is on her side? Parliament would probably back this plan, even if the Brexiteers don't, and then she has to sell it to Brussels. That could be the way that she is going. But certainly by the end of tonight, she wants to have some kind of agreement from her cabinet at least.
OK, Vicky, thank you very much. Vicky Young at Chequers. We're just going to take you to Brussels, where the EU's chief Brexit negotiator, Michel Barnier, is giving a talk today, a speech to the Institute of International and European Affairs. He's been saying there are still major withdrawal issues